Several months ago, a game came to my attention when I was contacted by its inventor. I had never heard of this game before, but the inventor, Dr. Bronn, thought that I would be interested in taking a look at it. And so this is what I received, and inside this was this, and inside this was this. And under that, we find this. This Dr. Bronn, whose actual name is Dr. Vladmir Bronikov, has a PhD in robotics and taught at University at St. Petersburg, and then more recently has moved to Toronto, where he's a college professor there. And this game idea is apparently based on some pretty heavy science. It has something to do with modeling biosystems and interneural networks and stuff that I have no idea how it works. I found another source that said Dr. Bronn was inspired by some ancient Mayan artwork. Well, maybe it could be a combination of the two. That quite often happens when creativity comes into play. Now, the game was originally introduced in Russia, and the Russian name translates to English as something akin to combinator. And combinator begins with a C and ends with TOR, and so that's where this name CTOR came from, apparently. 100,000 units were created in Russia. I'm not sure how well it sold, but in 2002, Dr. Bronn moved to Toronto. In 2018, the CTOR game was reprinted in Canada. In 2023, it was reprinted in Russia. And then in February of 2022, I hope you're getting all this, there'll be a quiz later. And then in February of 2022, the Canadian publisher Analog Game Studios ran a Kickstarter campaign, and they released a version of it called Torus. And I'll tell you in a little while why Torus is a logical name for the game. It did moderately well, and it is still available from AGS. Now, later in this video, there will be some special news about this game, so you'll want to stay tuned to the end. This is a torus, a donut shape, with its surface divided into 100 four-sided sections. Let's split this apart at one of the grid lines, and we get a curved tube. Then we can straighten the tube out like so, split this tube along its length, and unroll it. And when we lay it flat, it becomes a game board. In fact, the game board for the CTOR game. And so this three-dimensional toroidal shape is flattened out to become the game board. There are other games that do this wraparound thing. One of my favorite is Megiddo. That has a game board that's a circle, and there's a wraparound on the radial part of that board. That's pretty easy to visualize. But then Megiddo only has 36 points on the board. This has 100 spaces to keep track of, and of course it also has corners which wrap around 3 different directions, and that's kind of the innovation that Dr. Bronn has built into the board here and to the method of play that makes it actually work. The game includes this little pouch of discs. The discs are black on one side and white on the other, and there's quite a few of them in here. One player or team will play the white side, one player or team will play the dark side, and the game ends when all the spaces on the board are covered with a disc, either black or white. The objective is, when that happens, to have the majority of the pieces on the board. So, how do we accomplish this? There's 2 situations here with the instruction book, in that this book loses a little in the translation from the Russian. And then the Torus rules are slightly different yet. There is a CTOR website, and that's a place where you can get some clarifications and communicate a little bit with their forum if you've got questions as far as movements or captures or things like that. Well, you can choose the first player any way you like, and the players alternate turns like most strategic games. And on each turn, a player has certain options. The first of these is called the put option, and that it consists of putting 2 discs anywhere on that center section of 100 squares, your side up, right? So you can put 2 like so on the board. I could just as easily put 2 like this in that section. And the second operation is called the move operation, and that means that you can move 2 spaces. That can be one piece moving 2 spaces, so I will move this one, or it can be 2 pieces moved 1 space. The third possibility is called land. And with land, you can remove any 2 of your own pieces from the board and replace those with 1 piece on any available space. Now, personally, I think that the word land doesn't really make a lot of sense in that case, except maybe that final piece is landing on the board somewhere. But anyway, that's what Dr. Bronn calls it. The fourth operation is called replace. It could just as well be called capture or claim or flip. But if you're familiar with Reversi or Othello, you'll catch on pretty quick what's going on here. If at any time you put or move a piece into a position that surrounds an opponent's piece with 5 of your own, you can flip that disc to your color. This can be any of the 8 positions around the disc. If there's 5 of those positions filled and you're surrounding that other color, then you can flip it over. And this can lead to a cascade of flipping if the result surrounds another piece on 5 sides. Like a lot of pattern recognition challenges, the more you play, the better you'll get at seeing these effects. And as shown here, a piece can be placed into a position that looks like a capture. But the replace operation is only effective when the active player creates the condition. So, white disc at space 10 here will capture the black disc at 17. Now, all 4 of these different operations can be done in your turn. They can be done in any order, but they can only be done once in a given turn. Well, that's a lot going on in one turn, and it requires quite a bit of insight, and you're not going to have that insight until you've played through a lot of turns here and get some experience behind you to see how to visualize all the possibilities. So the standard recommendation is that you take the rules I have just related and play just with those rules on the center 100 spaces, or even on the center 64 spaces, because the other side of the board is simpler, so that you can play in here and just get used to how things move and all the ways to visualize what could possibly happen. So go play a few games and then come back and we'll get into the next phase of this stuff. My news is coming very soon. Meanwhile, I want to remind you to go ahead and subscribe and like and all that kind of stuff. Click that notification bell. The primary mission of the YouTube channel here is to talk about historic games, games that are out of print, obscure games that maybe you've never heard of before. I do cover some modern games and do some reviews now and then. So, you'll get a little bit of everything on the NewVenture channel here. Okay, you done yet? You feel kind of like, you understand the terrain and what happens? All right, here's what happens next. First of all, though, if you have trouble seeing colors, this next bit may be a bit of a challenge for you. The colors are really a great aid to figuring all this stuff out. You can play without the colors, but it's really helpful if you can see the colors. So looking at the board here, let's look at the colors around the edges. We've got a row of red on one side here and a corresponding row of red over here on the edge. We've got green, we got green, we got blue, we got blue, we got yellow, okay? And then we've got the corners. Here's a light green and a light green and a light green. And a blue, light blue and a light blue and a light blue. And a purple and a purple and a purple and a purple. All these different colors relate in a very unique way. The red numbered spaces are also the red unnumbered spaces. So for example, if I put a disc over here on this side of the board, I also put a disc over here on this side of the board, conveying to my opponent that I have put one disc on this wraparound, okay? And the second disc could be over here, which means I have to put a disc here to indicate that it's on the blue edge of the board. This is sort of a folded space thing, right? We're in 2 places at once. Once you get your head around it, it's not too hard to see. And now the colors in the corners do the same thing. So if I put a disc on this corner over here, then that's a light green color. I have to simultaneously put a disc on all the other light green ones to show that that corner borders on these corners. Pretty crazy, huh? So let me throw a few more discs on the board here, and then I'll show you some of the other effects that this wraparound has. Okay, here's one fairly simple move that I'm going to make, and that is I go from the blue to the yellow. Both of those move, right? And the next time, if I move in that same direction, goes here, this one goes off the board back into the supply. Now, as I mentioned, in order to convert a piece into your color, you have to surround it with 5 of your pieces. So watch this one. If I move this piece that direction, goes from the red to the green, that means this one, the red, it's the same piece, goes to the green. Now I've surrounded this black piece with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my pieces. That flips the black to my color, which also flips this to my color, right? Because they're the same piece on opposite sides of the universe here. Now, as I said, there can be cascading effects, which means I've turned over a piece that creates an outline of 5 on another piece. It can continue to capture more and more pieces with one move. Okay, so bear with me on this. This setup here is going to be a little more complicated. So we start out with my turn is here, and I'm going to do a move. I can move 2 pieces or 1 piece 2 spaces orthogonally. And it goes like this. I'm going to move this corner black piece this direction, 1 space, which means this, which is the same piece, has to move there, and this piece has to move there, and this piece has to move there. So that's 1 move. All right. Second move. This piece moves this direction. All right. So all these kind of move over here to indicate where it is on these other edges. All right. Now, by doing that, I've surrounded this piece, this white piece, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my pieces. That converts that, like so, to my color. Now, by doing that, I've surrounded this one with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my pieces. So that one also becomes black. So that gives you the fundamentals of all these different moves and surrounding things and going the wraparound with the colors and the simultaneous locations around the edge of the board. So the edges are just indicators of what's going on in the center part of the board. It almost feels kind of like a Kriegspiel thing where you need a third player just to simply keep track of all this stuff, at least until you get used to how it works. And so this is the spot in the video when I say, but wait, there's more. The box also comes with a separate little manual here that's called Team Strategy Game Instruction Manual. And if you look in the box here again, you can see we've got a little selection of markers here, some timers. These are some little write-on-them dry erase boards. And all that comes into play when you play teams. I haven't even played through any of this team stuff at all, but here's what that instruction book says in a nutshell. Each turn consists of separate operations. A player chooses a square for his or her next operation and notes its number on one of the marker boards for recording, not revealing it to other team players. Then all players of the team open their selected square field numbers simultaneously, that is, you reveal, and perform the operation. If 2 or more team players choose the same square for their current operation, only one of them performs the operation with a chip on that square. So I guess the team as a group has to decide which operation gets performed. So it's a little bit like plan ahead sort of a situation. I want to move here, and I want to move there, and I want to move here. And if they're separate, if they're not duplicated, then you go ahead and move all those. Then the other team goes. There's also a table in the instructions over here that has to do with how many people are on each team. Some of the movements, some of the operations are not available for certain size teams, which I guess reduces the confusion threshold again. There's also some alternative rules in here if you want to spice it up even more. Then you'll notice in the box we have some timers in here. That's for the solo mode. The way they describe it is it's right brain versus left brain. And so you play a turn and take your time and do whatever you want. But then when you flip that timer over for the other side of your brain, you have to get your turn done before the timer runs out. I see a degree of cleverness about that, but Holy wow. I guess it's a good way maybe to practice. I'd like to kind of watch a little of that happen so that I could get an idea of how it really works. And then the next option is called migration. In the rules that I have read in several different places, it says that the migration rule is called expert mode or an advanced mode. You can play the game and not use the migration option. Whoever you're playing against, just be clear which rules you're actually going to adhere to. And that's a little weird. Let me animate that for you. In this case, you can move a group of your pieces to empty spaces. A group of two can be moved together orthogonally one space in the direction described by the pair, as if there were 2 points in the move vector. A group of three can be moved one space orthogonally towards a corner, like the three pieces form a sort of go this way arrow. A group of four can be moved one space orthogonally all together. All four pieces move in a single direction. Now, if I'm doing that migration operation, is if these four decide to move together this direction, then that means these go from the yellow to the blue, and those went from the white to the yellow. All right, so these four pieces on this side are in the same place as those four pieces on the other side. Okay, now if I move them one more time this way, they go like this, and these are no longer on the board. Okay, crazy. Dr. Bronn came up with something called ambush mode. And in ambush mode, each player writes down on their little marker board their 5 coordinates on the board. If at any time an opponent moves or places a piece into that space, one of those 5 spaces, then you can say, haha, that's one of mine, I've just ambushed you. And so then it flips automatically over to your color. It's kind of devious. And I don't know quite how you reveal just one coordinate to prove that that's one of your ambush points without revealing the rest. But I guess for experienced players that want to add a little playfulness to the game, that's a way to do it. Here's what the Torus version looks like. Take a look down here. It's actually only the smaller board of the two CTOR boards. But use these yellow and red discs, donuts here, Toruses, I guess. And you can see how things work here. The colors are a little bit harder to discern, a little more stylish maybe, but then they have these small symbols here so you can keep track. Here's the cube and the cube and the cube and the cube are all the same space simultaneously. So the same principle applies here. The game comes with 3 timers, red, blue, and yellow, and I'm not sure why. The instruction sheet simply says that there's a timer, and you use it for the left brain, right brain solo mode, just like in the original CTOR. And so that's CTOR / Torus / Combinator, all the same game. Dr. Bronn says he's working on an AI. Presumably you could get an app or play online or something like that, play against a computer. There is a digital version of Tabletopia so that you can play with another human being and just use the digital board. And there's also apparently versions available at Apple and Google Play, but I haven't been able to access those. They may only be available in certain areas. So have you played CTOR? I would definitely like to hear from you if you've played it. Now there have been tournaments and demonstration opportunities at some of the cons and so on. So I'd like to hear what your opinions of the game are. But in any case, the game does work. It's kind of a brain burner, but a really nice challenge for fans of abstract strategy games. So now here's the big news. Right now, CTOR, the original, is only available in the United States from NewVenture Games. So we have an exclusive distribution agreement right now with Dr. Bronn. We got these at a great price, and we're going to pass that savings on to you so that you can get the CTOR game. And if you order right away, you'll be able to still get it before the holiday gift-giving season this year. So be sure to click the link down here and get right to our catalog so that you can get a copy of CTOR. Whether you play CTOR or Torus or not, be sure to play every day. So thanks again, and we'll delve back into history again next week.